All right. Let's begin. I'm not sure we can call this a deep dive so much as a tribunal. I want to put the whole concept of law on trial today.
The tribunal.
Yes. And the key piece of evidence is a chapter from Feng Nomina, chapter 11, After the Law.
See, you're already starting from a flawed premise.
How so?
You're trying to convene a court, you're invoking a judge, a process, but the entire point of this text is that the courtroom is a ruin. The judge's chair is empty, the gavel is dust.
So this isn't a trial.
No, it's an autopsy. We're here to figure out what killed the very idea of judgment, of transcendent evaluation.
Okay, an autopsy. I can work with that. So what's our mission here? What are we tracing?
We're tracing a collapse, the complete meltdown of the West's, its basic operating system. We're going to start with Plato, with his, high ideals. Then we're going to drag those ideals through the muck and blood of a 15th century dungeon, and we're going to end up right here.
Okay.
In this cold, impersonal, cybernetically automated thing we call the market.
So you're saying justice is the corpse on the table, and my question is, does it even exist? Did it ever?
The text would say that justice was never a thing. It was a matrix, a process of transmutation that was always hiding a descent into something else.
Chaos.
Precisely.
Right. Let's start at the beginning of that descent. The source makes a really aggressive claim right out of the gate. It says philosophy only finds its purpose by fantasizing about a supreme tribunal. Why? Why this obsession with judgment?
Because philosophy, at least since Plato, is fundamentally an exercise in control. It's terrified of the raw, unclassified nature of reality.
So thinking itself is a form of law enforcement.
In a way, yes. The text argues that logic, what we call logic, is just a distillation of juridical procedure.
Unpack that for me.
Think about what you do when you reason. You take a specific thing, a case, and you classify it. Yeah. You put it under a general rule, a genus.
A species under a genus, right.
That is an act of judgment. You're dragging the messy, chaotic particular into a clean, well-lit courtroom of categories and forcing it to confess its identity.
The word category itself?
Yeah.
Doesn't it come from the Greek for accusation?
Kategreen. To accuse, to think, is to accuse reality of not being orderly enough. For millennia, the ultimate court of appeal for this process was God. God's intellect was the supreme court that judged all appearances.
But the text says that's over. We're in a collapse towards immanence. That sounds terminal.
It means the penthouse has collapsed into the basement. There's no more up, no higher authority to appeal to. There's no God, no king, no transcendent reason looking down. There is only the sprawling, interconnected ground-level network.
And what's the logic of that network?
There is no logic. There's an operating protocol. The commodity form, as the text calls it. That's the new matrix.
So we've gone from God to the stock market.
It's a brutal demotion, isn't it? The text puts it plainly. Trying to judge Plato or Bataille by the standards of philosophy today. It's just entertainment. It's a joke.
It's a reality TV show set in a courtroom.
We're living in a post-legitimacy world. That's the diagnosis.
Okay. If the whole system is a glitch, we have to go back to the source code, to the original sin. And the text points a finger directly at Socrates.
Patient zero.
But Socrates is the hero of Western thought, the martyr for truth, the gadfly. This text paints him as a kind of criminal.
Worse than a criminal. He's the one who programmed the virus in the first place. The source treats Plato's apology less as a defense and more as a crime scene.
A crime scene where what was stolen or what was killed?
The unknown. The very concept of the unknown was hijacked, weaponized.
How do you weaponize? I know that I know nothing. That seems like the opposite of a weapon. It's surrender.
Is it? Or is it the most sophisticated intellectual weapon ever devised? Look at his defense. He's on trial for his life.
For corrupting the youth.
Right. And atheism.
Yes. And does he stand up and say, your laws are wrong, I'm a rebel? No, that would be too simple. He does something far more clever. He says he's acting on the unimpeachable authority of a god, of Apollo, the oracle at Delphi.
The oracle, the voice from the void, a chaotic, unintelligible message from beyond the limits of reason. And what does Socrates do with it?
He interprets it.
He doesn't just interpret it, he solves it. He turns the oracle's riddle into a logical proof of his own superiority.
He says the god called him the wisest because he's the only one who knows he's ignorant.
And that's the betrayal.
Huh.
Right there. The text calls this the profane detour of philosophy. The oracle represents a sacred duty to abandon intelligence in the face of the divine, the unknown. Socrates takes that sacred unknowing and uses it as a platform to launch a new kind of knowing, a more arrogant kind.
So he's saying the great mystery itself has certified me as the smartest guy in the room.
Precisely. He's laundering the authority of the irrational through the machine of his reason. He does it with his demon, too, that voice he claims to hear.
The voice that only tells him what not to do.
A divine sign,
Hmm.
an intervention from the outside. But notice how it conveniently reinforces his own philosophical project.
But where this gets really critical, according to the text, is when he faces his own death.
Ah, yes, the final act. This is where the glitch becomes, fatal for the entire operating system of the West.
He's been condemned, he's about to drink the hemlock, and he says something extraordinary.
I am now at that point where the gift of prophecy comes most readily to me, at the point of death.
He's not scared, he's almost excited. He treats death like a graduation ceremony.
He calls it a preparation for wisdom. This is the great Socratic con. He stands there and says, look, there are two possibilities. Either death is nothing, a dreamless sleep, which is a good thing, a rest, or it's a migration of the soul, a journey to a place where he can hang out and cross-examine the souls of Homer and Odysseus, a better, more permanent philosophy seminar.
So either way, he wins.
Do you see what he's done? He has refused to allow death to be death. He has refused to let it be the absolute terrifying unknown.
He's colonized it.
He's colonized the void with logic. He's taken the one thing that should silence reason and turned it into reason's ultimate playground. This is the moment the text identifies as the birth of our whole problem.
And to do that, he has to invent something new, right? This clean separation.
The soul and the body. The body becomes a cage, a prison. The senses are unreliable. This world is just a shadow. True justice, true knowledge can only be found when the soul escapes the body, escapes life.
This creates a hierarchy of judgments.
A nesting doll, yes. Athens puts Socrates on trial.
But then Plato, through his writing, puts Athens on trial.
And then the realm of perfect ideas, which only the philosopher can access, gets to judge everything. Plato files a counter-litigation, as the text says. He appeals to a higher court that he himself has invented.
And the philosopher becomes the only true judge.
And we've been infected with that arrogance ever since. This belief that we can stand outside of the messy flow of existence and pass judgment on it.
So Socrates subverts the old religion.
To replace it with the religion of the judge, the religion of reason. He buries the chaos of the oracle under the marble courthouse of philosophy.
Okay, so that's the bug in the original code, this Socratic move to tame the unknown. But the text doesn't stay there. It pivots hard.
It has to. Because while Socrates is building this clean, well-lit prison of reason, something else is happening, a force that Socrates and Plato tried to ignore.
Something the text connects to George's Bataille.
Yes. We're about to leave the courtroom and stare directly into the sun.
The solar economy. This feels like a completely different world from Plato's dialogues.
It is the world that Plato was trying to build a wall against. You see, our entire economic and philosophical tradition is based on a fundamental error.
Which is?
That the core problem is scarcity, lack, not having enough.
That sounds right to me. We don't have enough resources, enough time, enough money.
Bataille says that is a local secondary problem. The primary universal problem for life on this planet is not scarcity, it's excess. It's the sun. It vomits energy onto the earth, nonstop, without asking for anything in return. Life is not a struggle to acquire energy. It's a desperate struggle to figure out what to do with all this excess energy. We're drowning in it.
And that energy has to be expended.
It must be spent, wasted, burned,
Yeah.
gloriously and uselessly. If you try to hoard it, to contain it, it will find a way to burst out, and that bursting out will destroy you.
So societies, or civilizations, they're just structures for managing this excess.
They are dams. The text calls them discontinuities, trying to hold back this constant solar flow. And law is the engineer of the dam.
Law is the imperative to the preservation of discrete being. That's the phrase from the source.
It wants to keep everything in its neat, separate, productive little box. It wants to stop the flow, to preserve, to accumulate, to be useful.
But the text says you can't hold back the sun forever.
The recommencement of the solar trajectory scorches jagged perforations through civilizations. The pressure always builds. And the dam always, eventually, breaks.
And that break is war, sacrifice.
It's all the non-productive, glorious, horrific expenditure that reason hates. The text gives examples. the potlatch ceremonies of Northwest indigenous tribes.
Where they just burn their most valuable possessions.
Gain prestige, right?
To prove they were so powerful they could afford to waste on a magnificent scale. Aztec sacrifice, feeding human hearts to the sun god. It's a direct energy transfer.
Even Tibetan monastery.
An enormous population of monks dedicated to non-productive activity, a massive energy sink. These were all, in Bataille's view, safety valves. Ritualized ways of bleeding off the excess pressure.
And then something changes. The text points to Protestantism.
The Reformation, Calvin, Luther. This is the moment the West decides to plug all the safety valves.
The Protestant work ethic.
It's a rationalization of religion. It declares waste to be a sin. No more lavish cathedrals, no more opulent rituals, no more selling indulgences.
You must work, you must save, you must be productive, you must accumulate.
You must hoard the solar energy. And that hoarded energy has a name. Capital. So the birth of capitalism is the shutting down of these waste mechanisms.
And according to the source, this decision, this damming up of all expenditure is what propels us into, well, into modernity, into unprecedented extremities of affluence and catastrophe.
Because if you don't have the ritual sacrifice,
then the pressure builds and you get the industrial slaughter of World War I. The energy finds another way out.
Or it implodes. It turns inward. And this brings us to the most disturbing case study in the entire text.
Yes, this is where the theory gets very, very bloody.
The trial of Gilles de Rais.
A man who was both a national hero and a literal monster. And for the text, he's not an aberration. He's a symptom, a glitch in the transition between two worlds.
Let's just lay out the facts for the listener. Gilles de Rais, born 1404, Marshal of France, fought beside Joan of Arc.
He was one of the wealthiest men in Europe, the embodiment of the high feudal aristocracy.
And the text makes a crucial point about that feudal spirit. It's a spirit of lack of measure.
For the feudal noble, war wasn't a political tool. It was potlatch. It was luxury, sport, glorious expenditure. The text calls them berserkers, these knights whose very dreams were filled with slaughter.
But de Rais is living at a turning point. The 15th century, the world is changing.
He's a dinosaur. He's watching the climate change, and he doesn't know why. War is being rationalized.
How so?
The monarchy is centralizing power. It wants a professional army it can control. The English longbow, and later gunpowder, are making the aristocratic knight obsolete. War is shifting from a noble's luxurious game to a calculated, efficient science.
And the text has that incredible line, neither intelligence nor calculation is noble.
For a true berserker, for a man like de Rais, calculation it's disgusting. It's what merchants do. A true lord proves his greatness by spending, by wasting his fortune without reckoning.
Which de Rais did. He blew through his entire inheritance on an absurdly lavish lifestyle.
But it wasn't enough. The world was closing in on him. The outlets for his solar energy, they were being sealed off. The new, rationalized world had no place for a man like him.
So he retreats into his castles.
He turns the violence inward. And his fortress becomes what Bataille calls a solar anus, a point of absolute non-recuperable loss. A black hole.
And this is where the crimes begin. In 1432, the murder of children.
Hundreds of them, perhaps, mostly young boys. He turned his personal domain into a private slaughterhouse. The text says his crimes were a response to the immense disorder which inflamed him. He couldn't wage war on the English anymore, so he waged war on existence.
And this is where the source poses its most provocative question. It asks, can we construct an apology for Gilles de Rais, the way Plato did for Socrates?
And it says the very idea is an absurdity, but not for the reason you think.
Okay.
The text twist is that de Rais failed. He failed to be a true monster. He failed to achieve a truly sacred violence.
Wait, he tortured and murdered up to 200 children. How is that not violent enough? What could possibly be more violent?
It's not about the quantity of the violence. It's about the quality. It's about his relationship to it.
What was wrong with it?
He wanted to watch.
To watch?
The trial records are explicit. He wasn't just a murderer. He was a spectator. He loved to look. He'd have the bodies of his victims opened up so he could see death at work. He was obsessed with the visual, the spectacle.
He turned it into a theater of cruelty.
He turned it into an object of study. And in that moment, he became Socratic.
Whoa, hold on. You're connecting a serial child murderer from the 15th century to the founder of Western philosophy.
The text does. And it's a devastating connection. Think about it.
Right.
What did Socrates do? He tried to make the unknown knowable through logic and reason.
Right.
What did de Rais do? He tried to make the unknown knowable through direct empirical observation. He was performing autopsies to understand death. He wanted to be a subject, standing apart, looking at death as an object.
He's Socrates becoming Baconian. That's the quote. Francis Bacon, the father of the scientific method.
He's an experimental scientist of atrocity. He's not losing himself in the sacred solar frenzy. He's trying to stand back, take notes, and understand.
So the fatal glitch in his monstrosity was his intellectual curiosity.
It was his rationality, his detachment. He failed to achieve what the text calls sacred loss. He couldn't just be the violence, he had to observe it. He was trapped in the world of representation.
And the proof of this failure comes at his own trial.
Exactly. When he's finally caught and put on trial, does he rage against the heavens? Does he embody the satanic force he dabbled in?
No, he collapses. He confesses everything.
He becomes a pale criminal. He's terrified of Satan, terrified of damnation. He begs the church for forgiveness. He completely reintegrates himself into the system of law and religion he had violated.
Which brings us to another key phrase from the text. Evil does not survive to be judged.
That's it. That's the core of it. A true solar force, a true eruption of this base violence. It leaves no one behind to stand on the dock. It leaves no subject, no witness, no judge. It just burns.
If you're standing in court crying and asking for salvation,
You're not a force of nature. You're just a broken human, a malfunctioning machine.
and that phrase, malfunctioning machine, feels like the perfect transition. Because that's where the text takes us next, into the modern world.
The world after law.
It makes the flat declaration, law has already disappeared from the earth. I mean, that's a bold claim. I see laws in courts everywhere.
Do you? Or do you see what the text calls nostalgic media-driven theater?
Like celebrity trials.
Exactly. We put on these shows to reassure ourselves that the old system of judgment still works, but it's just a performance. The real power, the real governing principle, has moved elsewhere.
It calls the state a caretaker for retarded sectors of behavioral management. That's harsh.
It's a clinical description. The state is just a janitor now. It mops up the messes in the parts of society that the market hasn't fully streamlined yet.
The market. We're back to the market as the new god.
It's not a god.
Mhm.
A god judges. The market doesn't judge. It doesn't care about good or evil, right or wrong, just or unjust.
It cares about what?
Flow, efficiency, processing. Your freedom, as the text puts it, is nothing more than your pattern of stochastic market interventions. You're not a soul making moral choices. You're a node in a network executing transactions.
The text gives a perfect example of this. The war on drugs.
A beautiful case study. The law, this nostalgic ghost, stands up and says, drugs are immoral. They must be stopped.
It passes laws. It arrests people.
And the market just routes around the damage. It sees a demand and it provides the supply. The law's attempt to impose a moral judgment is just an inefficiency, a barrier.
And the market corrects for that inefficiency.
By creating organized crime. The cartels aren't an anti-state force. They are a pure market force. They are what happens when you try to apply an archaic moral code to a fluid economic reality. They are hyper-capitalists.
Okay, so this brings us to the final evolution of the criminal. We started with the Socratic sinner whose soul was on trial.
Then the feudal monster, like Rais, this spectacular eruption of waste.
What's the criminal in our modern market-driven world?
The serial killer.
But not the way we usually think of them. Not as some gothic Hannibal Lecter figure.
No, that's more media nostalgia. The text's final chilling conclusion is that the serial killer represents the transition from evil to pathology, from a moral problem to a technical one.
A software error.
A software error, a glitch. In a cybernetic system designed for population management, the serial killer is just a bug in the code, a corrupted file.
So Gilles de Rais was an economic control malfunction.
And the modern serial killer is just a processing anomaly. We don't look for a criminal soul anymore. We don't even really look for motive in the old sense.
We look for the brain tumor, the chemical imbalance, the childhood trauma that miswired the circuits.
We look for the bug. We've moved from judging a soul to debugging a program.
It's so cold, it's the absolute removal of all meaning from the act.
It is the death of tragedy itself. The source mentions that tragedy is the impotence of reason. But what happens when reason itself has been replaced by automated protocol? You can't have tragedy.
You just have system crashes, accidents, malfunctions.
You don't put a faulty server on trial for being evil.
Yeah.
You unplug it, you run diagnostics, and you reboot the system.
This is an incredibly bleak picture. We've journeyed from the oracle at Delphi,
To the algorithm at Google.
from the supreme judge.
To the system glitch.
So if the law is a ghost and the tribunal is a television show, what is actually governing us?
Nothing governs. There is no governor. There is only the process. the protocols of commodification. We are inside the transmutational matrix. It's not leading anywhere. It's just processing.
A free fall. This entire deep dive has been a process of stripping away one illusion after another. We came here for a verdict.
And you found that reality was never on trial. It can't be. It's the fire that burns the courthouse down.
Which leaves a final question then, a question for you, the listener. If you are just a node in a vast cybernetic market, is your morality anything more than a user agreement you never bothered to read?
Don't bother answering. The system isn't listening. Terminating process.